Since we last spoke, the Devils have gone through quite a bit. They've returned their starting goaltender back from the injured list, signed him to an extension, have gone through a remarkable winning streak up to 8 games, went to the California road trip, got that out of the way early in the season, and it didn't exactly go as nicely as they would have hoped. Added a couple more names to the injured list as well. So quite a bit for us to get into for our first episode in a couple weeks. James Burley and Daniel Rebane here for Puck on the Parkway. Daniel, how's it going, my man?
I'm doing well. As most people would know from following me, the New York Red Bulls 2 are in the MLS Next Pro Final. I will be there at Sports Illustrated Stadium on Saturday night. So if you're free, hey, tickets are only 11 bucks. Pull up. Some good soccer going on there. So
Just a national title, if you want to
eh,
look at it that way too.
hey, yeah.
And might I mention they got a 16-year-old captain who's an absolute baller. A lot of good young talent to go and support if you want to support some local soccer. So good shout there. I might be there on Saturday as well. Still unsure about that, but I'll let you know. We'll talk about that off the air. As for the New Jersey Devils, however, it's been a tumultuous month of October now into November.
Hmm.
As we said, they went through a historical winning streak that took them into their homestand to start the year and finish out the month. Specifically, they won 8 games winning. The final few games we didn't get the chance to talk about. They beat the Minnesota Wild pretty comfortably, a 4-1 win at home. They beat the San Jose Sharks in what was a back and forth game, but one that they looked really solid defensively. And then they beat the Colorado Avalanche in overtime on a nice Jack Hughes goal on the feed from Simone Nemec, who, while struggling, did have a good moment of redemption in that game to notch the assist there. And then they went on the road, and things got a little bit different. A big name missing on the blue line, joining Jonathan Kovacevic, another important defensive right shot D man in Brett Pesce. Since his injury, the Devils have really started to look a lot different defensively. They've given up 8 goals, 5 goals, 4 goals, and 4 goals in those games. Not ideal. Pesce took a shot up high against the Avalanche in that home game and skated his way off. So not a good situation there for New Jersey, and they caught a reality check on the road in Colorado. Dan.
Yeah, I think, when that injury first happened, it didn't look like anything big, right? Like you look at the replay, he gets hit with the puck, he skates off. You're like, it's probably just a stinger or whatever. And yeah, now he's going to be out, multiple weeks, probably more than four weeks when he got injured. And that was such a tough blow because not only is he just a great defensive, player on the blue line, he brings penalty kill, he just brings confidence to the guys he's playing with, just being there, eating all those minutes, right? And he was showing offensive upside this year as well, just, with the system that they play on the back end. He was, getting involved offensively, going up the boards and everything like that. It just you take another veteran D man out the lineup and it's like, oh man, now you have to go with Seamus Casey. And we all love Seamus Casey, but when you're rocking a right side of, Dougie Hamilton, Simon Nemec, and Seamus Casey, I mean, it's like, where's the defense there? And we all think, Casey and Nemec are going to be good players in their own right in the future, but they're just not there at this point in their careers. It's a bit too early for them to be playing the minutes that they are, especially Casey when, I think he just needs a lot more time in the AHL to kind of refine that defensive game, but it has not looked good so far. These couple of games out west, Colorado, the biggest one where they give up 8 goals. I mean, they put up a fight where it looked like they were going to come back, but the penalty kill just kind of killed them that game. And now they get hit with some humble pie. They come back home though. They got a couple of days off to rest up and kind of heal a bit. But yeah, I think the West Coast trip kind of showed, the Devils and their fans that this isn't going to be as easy as it looks so far this season. So um, just got to get back to winning ways, and we'll talk about some of these games a bit more in detail.
Yeah, there. there was quite a bit of chatter about the goaltending situation in that Colorado game as well. Jacob Markstrom healthy for that road trip. Jake Allen had been fantastic over that stretch in Markstrom's absence and has continued to be good despite a bad loss within there. Um, there was a lot of criticism towards Sheldon Keefe for Jacob Markstrom to play in that game against Colorado, and for him, to not be pulled after conceding 8 goals, I think was a testament of trusting your goaltender. And then later in the week to go ahead and kind of steal a win, Markstrom against Los Angeles. The Devils were not the better team in that game. They had to withstand a lot of pressure. Markstrom had to stand on his head. A big outing from him, a good bounce back outing. And then eventually they fall to the Sharks and Ducks as well. The Sharks team much improved from last year, and you could say the same about the Anaheim Ducks. So as trap games on the road without some important players, unfortunately, they're missing Kovacevic already. So then to lose Pesci, I mean, that's two huge defensive gaps on the blue line now.
Yeah.
For as much promise as Simon Nemec has shown, it's clear he still has to refine his game defensively. And Luke Hughes being the guy on a line to kind of drive the defensive play is not going to work either. And for Casey to come in and try to fill that void was a really big task for him. I think it's been probably the smarter move to go with Chalowski and insert him into the team just because it's a more defensive look on the blue line, and that's something that they need to cover. But in the end, if I can offer a silver lining, is that at some point this season, the Devils are going to have both Pesci and Kovacevic healthy on the right side of defense with Dougie Hamilton. And we saw how good they were with just Pesci. I mean, that seems almost impenetrable if you can bring Covey back. Let's talk about these games moving forward because now they are back home. We mentioned Markstrom. We're going to talk about his extension in a minute. But tomorrow and Saturday, I think these are such intriguing games. The Montreal Canadiens are flying in the
Yeah.
Atlantic Division. And to everybody's surprise, the Pittsburgh Penguins are right up there with the Devils at the top of the Metro. Montreal had been building towards an improvement for the last couple seasons. I don't think people expected them to be just this good, but it's not exactly a surprise that they're in the mix for the playoffs in the Atlantic. On the other hand, the Penguins have been a surprise. What do you make of these next 2 games for the Devils? They're coming back home. They haven't lost at home yet, trying to capitalize on momentum after a bit of an underwhelming road trip where they had some bad luck with injuries. I think these are 2 really difficult games to come back home to.
Yeah, I mean Montreal is just a younger version of the Devils. I think all their prospects are starting to come to fruition in the NHL. Obviously, Cole Caulfield is starting to, be the guy that people thought he was coming out of the U.S. program when he was in that Jack Hughes draft. I mean, he's just a goal scorer, like just outstanding with the puck on his stick. Just his shot is magnificent, and obviously you have Lane Hudson on the back end, and you know he's their version of Luke Hughes, just a I'm gonna guess more of a pure offensive defenseman. I think just you saw what he did last year, where he's putting up all those assists. I mean, he's just a playmaker on the back end. And I think all their pieces are just coming together at the right time. They're mixing them in with some veteran guys as well. I think they're just a really good team, and we all talk about how strong the Atlantic is. Just they were the last team to get in, and they look like they're going to be pushing for one of those top 3 spots in the Atlantic, based on their start. And then obviously Pittsburgh. I don't think anybody expected Pittsburgh to do anything even remotely close to what they're doing. Um, Carried by Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. They're just still putting them on their back, right? And they're getting it done at such a you know old age. Like, Evgeny Malkin's like almost a year away from leaving to go back home or retire. And Sidney Crosby, yeah, he's still kicking, but he's only got a couple more years left. So for them to be, doing what they're doing down in Pittsburgh with that team, like I think that speaks volume of how good they still are, even at their age. So very impressed with both teams. And like you said, it's going to be tough to pull out wins there. So we'll see how they do coming back home. 3 days off before they play tomorrow. against Montreal. So it's gonna be fun games. I think both those games are gonna be fun. It's just can the Devils kind of get back to where they were before they left for Colorado?
Yeah, a quick 3 game homestand against Montreal, Pittsburgh, and then on Monday against the Islanders before they go on the road for what will be to this point their longest road trip of the season. I believe 7 games on the road, or maybe it's five. I think 5 games on the road between the Blackhawks,
Yeah,
Capitals, Lightning, Panthers, and
5.
Flyers, and they come back home again after that at the end of November around Thanksgiving. Um, I'm very intrigued to see how the Devils come into these games. Can they be the better team in the first period? You know, they've had to fight back in some games
Yeah.
to this point, but with the several days off and, you know, the sore taste of what this road trip was, I think they're going to come out flying against Montreal, and I hope to see the same against Pittsburgh too. So let's talk about Jacob Markstrom now, because that was the big news of the recent days for the Devils. The extension to Jacob Markstrom has come in. It is at 6 million AAV for 2 more seasons through 2027-28. This gives the Devils a number one goaltender for an extended period of time. I recently said that, you know, given the way he started the season and the way Jake Allen did, maybe they didn't have to make this decision right away. But Tom Fitzgerald disagreed, and while it's only 2 years, it's still for 6 million. I think, you know, maybe more expensive than some folks would have liked, but the fact that it's not super long term, I think makes a lot of sense for the Devils right now, considering, you know, spending less than 13% of their salary cap on the crease, in that Jake Allen took a good deal over the summer for his extension as well. Overall, your thoughts on bringing Markstrom back, and is he now cemented full time as the number one for New Jersey again?
I think, when we were talking about this, in a prior episode, I think we both were expecting like a longer term deal, kind of like Jake Allen, and where the money was spread over the time. And I think that's kind of what they were looking for. I think the Markstrom's camp, that's exactly what they wanted to do. But Tom Fitzgerald was kind of, inclined to keep it at that two year term. And I think that kind of sets the Devils up in a spot where, Mikhail Yurgorov is going to play, at BU this year, right? He's going to play at BU next year, most likely. That's what we expect. And then in the final year of Jacob Markstrom's deal, Big Mike's going to be in Utica for 1 year, right? Does that set them up where Big Mike comes up in 2028, 29 to play with Jake Allen? Maybe that might be just a bit too early, but I think the timelines are kind of aligning each other where once Jacob Markstrom finally his time is done in New Jersey, that's when Big Mike is gonna make his emergence with the big club. So I'm cool with it. I think, he's still got a lot to give. I think he showed it in that Kings game. I think it's just about getting healthy for him. I think, as you brought up multiple times, being a bigger goalie, his knees are starting to go a bit. But he showed he's capable of playing still. So I'm fine with it for 2 years. Him and Mark, I don't think there's a clear starter. I think if you have to pick one, like in a playoff game, if you once you get there, I think it is Jacob Markstrom still. But I think in the regular season, I think these two are going to go back and forth.
Yeah, honestly, with how good Allen's been, I understand, you know, not the best game against Anaheim, but particularly that third goal that snuck in from the sharp angle under his pad is an unacceptable goal to give up. But I mean, he's earned the right to make a silly mistake
Yeah,
to this point with how good he's been. Um, and he's a guy who's carried the load before. He's been a starter multiple times throughout his career in St. Louis and Montreal. I know, you know, Montembeault had to be injured for him to be a starter, but he looked good when he carried the load of a lot of consecutive games. So I think that's a good position to be in, where you have Markstrom now. You've given the confidence of an extension to, you know, you stuck with him in that ugly loss to Colorado. You believed in him. You said, we're not going to pull you in your first game back from injury. And even though the fans kind of jumped all over that, you know, I have to admit was overly critical of his start to the season as well. But for him to come back and have that game against the Kings, like you mentioned, you know, I think this is a good situation where you have two goaltenders who are capable of being starters, pushing each other. And let's face it, it's good to have stability in goal, but the team in front of them is what defined some of those results.
Exactly.
Markstrom needed to be better against Colorado, but that was not a winning performance from
You
the New
can't be
Jersey Devils
taking
in
all
front of
those
them.
penalties. Like
100%.
that was
Um,
ridiculous.
and that's also kind of now hurt the Devils' penalty kill record, which, coming into the seasons felt godly, but now has kind of been humbled a little bit as well as, still better than the average penalty kill in the NHL, but nothing spectacular, nothing historical. So I think when this team gets some more pieces back healthy, we'll see if Connor Brown plays on Thursday. We'll see what Cody Glass's return looks like. Zach McEwen and Cody Glass both, I believe, on the ice, but nowhere close to returning to
Yeah,
the team.
they're skating but in non-contact jerseys. So I mean, they're closer than Evgeny Dodonov,
Yeah.
who coach Keith said that he's nowhere near returning, which sucks because I think we only saw like a period or two with him, and then he breaks his hand, which that's a tough way to start your
I mean,
season. So
it's that's starting to rival the Corey Crawford, you know, Jonathan Bernier Devils career path. But unfortunately, Dodonov's still out. We made a comment previously about, when Dodonov comes back, who's going to draw out of the lineup. We've seen the line shift a decent bit, so let's talk about it. Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt have been amazing together. At times, though, Palat has kind of become
at
memed a
times,
bit for the whole time. He's been the meme, unfortunately, for just being a bit of a dead weight. Only 1 point. And when you're playing on a line with those two guys, I
that's
understand there are things
that's
intangibly
crazy.
that Andre Palat provides. Like he is a smart hockey player who has a good hockey sense, and that is probably his most valuable asset at this point in his career. But the fact that he's not able to generate points playing on a line with those two for most of the season, that's mind-boggling. Especially when he was brought in to be something of a difference maker to this team. He's a difference maker in a way that's honestly not positive, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
The Lions currently have Stefan Nason, who did return from injury over that 8 game win streak. He's now playing on that top line with Hughes and Bratt. I think you sacrifice maybe a bit of speed with Nason, but I think you get all the same intangibles that Palat has been providing: net front presence, being able to fight in the corners, forecheck. I think this is a good way to get Stefan Nason going this season. Someone who has unfortunately tried to start the season without getting surgery and then had to double back and end up getting that surgery. I see this as a way that maybe they activate him somewhat because Jack Hughes, I mean, has been amazing. Among the best goal scorers in the NHL this season with 10 and 13 games. He's got 16 points, on pace to break 100 points yet again. So your thoughts on that first line moving forward? Do we see Palat come back into that fold?
I think that the first line might be a revolving door until they get fully healthy and they put Evgeny Dadonov back there, or maybe with Palat not doing anything, if Mason goes up there and doesn't do anything, maybe that finally kind of forces them to make a trade for someone to play with that first line because. I mean, if you can't create offense with those two players, I just don't think you're a fit for the team. Especially like what his role was supposed to be when they signed him, right? Obviously, he was never going to be that point producing guy, but when you only have 1 point and all the games that you've played this year with that first line, it's just like how is that like that seems very hard to do. I feel like if they put you out there, you could be at like 5 points right now. Maybe you have a goal or two. So I don't know. I hope Mason, produces better. I think he's at a better place in his career to be with those type of players because obviously, like we said, that the line does need someone to go in the corners, kind of win those battles and get the puck to them. And obviously, Stefan Nation could do that. He can find those open pockets of space, and he still has a good shot to be goalie. So
Too.
we'll see how that works. But yeah, I think for right now, it's probably the best option. I'm not gonna lie, if they weren't, we'll get to the third line in a bit, but if they wanted to test Dawson Mercer back with them, I would have been fine with that because I feel like, Dawson showed this year that he's been that kind of, dog off a leash where he's winning puck battles and everything like that. And I think with his speed, he can play with those two.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about Dawson Mercer. I think he's been, the surprise of the season for the Devils so far. He's the player that, the Devils really thought he was in his rookie and sophomore seasons, right?
Yeah.
The guy who can sort of be a jack of all trades, can hop around the middle six in a number of different roles, power play, penalty kill, a great 200-foot player, and he's scoring goals and points like you wouldn't believe. I was lucky enough to go to the game against Minnesota at home. Cody Glass was ruled out right before that game started and has been out ever since. Mercer had to, get the short end and jump back from playing with Heishier and Timo Meyer and end up playing as the third line center, and it was his best game of the season. He took
Hmm.
control of that line. It was the best line during the game. He had, I think, 3 points, 2 goals, and an assist, or maybe a goal and 2 assists. Maybe just 2 assists. I might be making up that it was 3 points. Maybe it was just 2 points. The point remaining, though, is that he was fantastic in that game. He's been great, no matter what role he's been in this season. Then that has been huge for New Jersey. That this is they were missing that type of player last year. They were missing that type of extra contributor, and they've gotten that now. I also have to say Timo Meyer has stepped up as a guy who can, play on the third line, play on the first line. Haven't gotten the production from him that they would have liked, maybe to some extent, but he's another guy who can fill in multiple roles and has had to in this injury crisis. And that brings us to, I would say, what right now looks like the second line. Palat is now playing with Hischier and Gritsuk. I'm glad to see Gritsuk getting more minutes with the guys who really, the talented forwards on this team as opposed to, next to Cotter, Glendening, because I
Yeah.
really think it gets the best out of him. Um, but now this makes me think, well, maybe Timo Meyer should be playing with these two instead of Palat. But I mean, I think we're splitting hairs at that point. Your thoughts on where Gritsuk is in the lineup?
I think Gritsuk's looked his best this year when he was playing with Hischier and Meyer. So I
Yeah.
don't know why you would put him back with Hischier and then not have Meyer there. It's kind of, I think he's just trying to shake everything up, like in this offensive group, or just shake everything through this team and say, things haven't been good enough. But that would have been my second line. It would have been Timo, Nico, and Gritsu because I think when they were playing together, I think they looked really, really good. Wasn't that the game that Gritsu scored when he got the hit over by the bench and came down, right?
Gritsuk
When he
in
opened the
which game?
scoring? Wasn't that the
And
Minnesota game?
yes, that was Gritsuk's first goal, and it was off of a Timo Meyer face-off because that was the second power play unit, and Meyer was actually centering it because Mercer was playing with the first unit and has looked great doing it. That's also been another hindrance to Stefan Nason's scoring because he had so many power play points last year as the one right-handed player on the first power play unit, but that's been Mercer because he's been fantastic. So that's gotten in the way. By the way, Timo Meyer's got a 63% face-off percentage. I don't know
No,
where that came
yeah,
from, but he every time he takes a face-off, it looks like he's going to win it.
yeah. You
This
bring
is the
that
first
up.
season he's had a positive
I've
face-off
really
percentage.
noticed
That is a
that.
phone call. Hold on. I will mute that from myself. Sorry about that. My house phone went off. But you were saying, Dan, for Gritsuk to be playing his best hockey with Hischier and Meyer, I don't think Palat needs to be on that line.
Yeah, just put him down at the third line. I just feel like you're looking for your top six to be your best players, right? And obviously, certain players in that top six need to play different roles to, you know, boost the other players. Like we said with Nason playing with Jack and Brett, I just think Gritsuk, Nico, and Meyer just complement each other and what they want to do. Like Timo's going to be that power forward, that guy to kind of win battles in the corner. Gritsuk is the guy skating around, kind of finding those open pockets of space. And Nico's also a guy that's just going to be in the dirty areas. I think all three of those guys work off together, work off each other in the right ways. So maybe we are just splitting hairs, but that's just what I would have went with.
Line for Thursday, assuming Connor Brown is ready to play. If it is Timo Meyer, Dawson Mercer, Connor Brown, I mean that's pretty sexy. I can't lie. That's a
That's a
that's
good
a
third
pretty
line.
damn good looking third line. And then the fourth line kind of loses a little bit of juice. Cotter's there, but it's Juho Lamiko is going to be the center, and Luke Glendening's going to be on the right. I think Glendening, we were so jacked up about how good he looked in preseason and at the start of the year as the fourth line center. I think he's lost a little bit of juice in that. I mean, that line got pinned in a little bit with him as the center. But I think that also was maybe a reflection of the defense because I think, when there have been breakdowns, it's hard pressed to find a chance where it's not because of one of Nemitz or Hughes or when Casey was in the lineup, Casey or Chalowski. I mean, it's been tough on these younger guys to get pinned in some, and I think the fourth line, maybe Luke Glendening, has kind of fallen victim to that. I think though that Brian Hallinan has looked good enough to stay in the lineup. Maybe that means Glendening draws out and Lemico stays in, or you trust Luke Glendening to be the fourth line center and have Hallinan stay on the right. I don't know. I really think Hallinan often ends up getting hard done by not being in the lineup. I think he's been one of the better taxi guys the Devils have had in recent memory, and I was
Yeah.
really psyched to see him get his first NHL goal against the LA Kings in that win, and I thought that might have been enough to keep him in the lineup.
No, yeah, I wasn't able to watch that game because I was at the Red Bull 2 game at Sports Illustrated Stadium. But
Win.
I saw that goal and I was like, oh, here we go. We finally got something. And for whatever reason, right, I see all these analytic charts being posted around and it shows how negatively Luke Glendening's been playing. But the games I've watched, right, maybe I'm missing something. But from the eye test, I think he's been pretty good. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but you know, it's the same with Jonas Siegenthaler. When I was there in person, home opener, he was one of the best defensemen on the team. But analytically, he's like one of the worst Devils this season. So I don't know what I should be making with my eyes. I don't know. I'm one of the old school guys where I use my eyes a lot. So I don't know. I'm not a big analytic guy sometimes, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on the analytics saying that Glendening and Siegenthaler have kind of been like the worst Devils this year?
Necessarily agree that Siegenthaler's been among the worst Devils. Do I think he's, not necessarily played to his standard every game? No, I don't think that. But I think also part of that is now if you look at this lineup, there's only two really defensive defensemen in that team, and it's Siegenthaler and Dillon at the moment. I guess you can rope Chalowski into that now. I kind of feel like Chalowski's a two-way defenseman. Siegenthaler, for me, has had to pick up more slack than he's been asked in recent seasons, and that has maybe contributed to why the analytics like. And I know which charts you're talking about, the ones with the bars that are the horizontal bars that are either on the left or the right. I don't know. I don't know what to make of those. I got to be honest. I don't know how they're made. I don't know what the criteria is. Sometimes I feel like I see the bar and I'm like, yeah, I felt like that guy had a good game, or it felt like that guy had a bad game and it got it right. And sometimes I'm like, I don't really understand this. Um, so they know something we don't. I do think that Siegenthaler's maybe been below his own standard. I don't think he's been the worst devil. And then Glendening, I think I understand if he had been trending that way, but for him to have started the season there, I'm not sure if he did. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. If I had to pick of 12 forwards that the Devils have dressed at the moment, who I think would maybe be the first guy you take out of the lineup, I think I would go Lemico, and then Glendening would be the 11th. So
Yeah. No,
it's not shocking to me.
but back to your point, I think yeah, Brian Hallinan deserves to be in this lineup. I think he brings that element off the right wing where he has a shot, he can play that physical bump and grind type of game, and he can skate. I think he's shown that in flashes. I think he just needs a bit more run to kind of show his skill set. So yeah, running Lemico and Glendening on the fourth line is a bit strange, but we'll see. Maybe he draws back in on Saturday.
There's a whole lot that we should look into this, but I mean, there's an edge to this guy's game. He knocked the crap out of Simone Benoit. Like you saw that fight. I know you did.
Yes,
That
yeah.
was a haymaker and a half. That was a guy who was seeing red with a man on a mission. I got to be honest. I have not seen a haymaker come like that from a Devil in a long time. I think maybe PK Subban was the last one who had a big fight like that, big resounding fight. But I think Hallinan, has more dimensions to his game than most fourth liners that I can think of in recent Devils history. Especially guys that taxied between the AHL level and the National League. So
Mhm.
he's a guy that I'd love to see get more of a look, especially when I think you got two guys that I haven't necessarily been uber impressed with in recent games on that fourth line. Moving forward, I mean, it's a tough week for New Jersey, but I think one that they should be confident about. Coming back home, yes, they're missing Pesci on the blue line, but I know it's been a number of games now for Nemitz, Chalowski, Hughes get used to the more defensive responsibility. Um, if Connor Brown's in the lineup, I take them to beat Montreal and I take them to beat Pittsburgh and bounce back from what was a bit of an underwhelming road trip. I think the goaltending is going to be solid again. I think the goaltenders have reason to be confident, both of them. It'll be interesting to see if Markstrom gets both of these games and Allen gets the Islanders. I would imagine that's probably the setup that Sheldon Keefe's going to go for. And then another tall task of a long road trip that takes them from Wednesday, November the 12th, all the way to November the 22nd before they come back home against the Red Wings. So, yeah, what's your ambition? What's your, I guess, prediction for how the Devils fare against Montreal, Pittsburgh, and the Islanders?
Well, they did just call up Colin White as well and put Casey back in the AHL. One person I would have called up if they were looking for, more of a defensive stability on that back end. And he might be a lefty, but I mean, Colin White's a lefty as well. I would have called up Ethan Edwards. I think he brings that skating ability that the Devils want from all their defensemen. He brings that physical edge despite being only like 6 foot 5'11" on a good day. Um, and he has that, and he's shown he could be that defensive guy for a team. I mean, last year he was playing at Michigan. He played almost 25. He played more than 25 minutes a game. He was pushing close to 30 on some nights. So I know they're looking for more of a veteran, kind of player on that back end in Colin White. But I would have given Ethan Edwards a shout, just to see what he can do, kind of maybe stabilize things until Brett Pesci came back. But we'll see if Colin White gets in here. I mean, I'm not the biggest Cholowski guy. I think Colin White has shown that on occasion he could play in the NHL, so maybe that's a better option to go there. But looking at this homestand, I think they should at least get 2 wins, maybe even all three. I think the Devils are better than all three teams, or at least two of them. They're definitely better than Pittsburgh and the Islanders, even though Pittsburgh and the Islanders have shown that they're playing good hockey, but I think they at least have to get 2 wins. And then on that road trip, I mean, let's just look at it real quick. I mean, Chicago, Washington, Tampa, Florida, and Philly, right? It's going to be a tough one, but if they can go out there and, get 2 wins, maybe an overtime kind of result in there where they maybe pick up 1 point and they go 2-2-1, I think that's acceptable, especially with all the injuries they have. They'll probably get Brown back this week, hopefully Cody Glass at the start of the road trip. So if they can get both those guys back, I think that's a real big boost to the offensive core. So if they could go 2-1 on the homestand, 2-2-1 on the road trip, I think that's very acceptable for where they're at right now.
Yeah, and again, we posed this question to ourselves before when it was about Dodonov, but when Glass comes back, when maybe McEwen comes back because he looked good in that first game, it's going to
Mhm.
be another interesting question as to who draws out of the lineup, who gets sent down, who is, the healthy scratch moving forward. It's interesting to see what the Devils are going to do with some of the roster choices they're going to have to make over the next few weeks and months. We hope that guys like Brett Pesci, Cody Glass, that they're available soon. We hope to hear more about a guy like Dodonov, about a guy like Kovacevic. But I imagine we're going to be waiting a little bit longer with both of them, especially with the latter. So, yeah, moving forward, I think 2 wins out of 3 for this next homestand should be the expectation and should be really the bare minimum for the Devils if they want to continue the perception that they're a top team in the league.
Yeah.
You got to win these tough games, even when you're going through adversity, like missing big players.
Yep.
I really would like to see the goaltending be a big factor in success over these next few home games, and then take that momentum onto the road and have a positive road trip. Certainly a more positive road trip than they just had in Colorado and in Southern California. But that's just about going to do it for us on Puck of the Parkway this week. Hopefully, we come back with some wins to talk about from this homestand and ensuing road trip. So for Daniel Rebane, I've been James Burley. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Puck on the Parkway. Thank you.